All right. Good morning, Chairperson, Board Member Garrett, and staff. The lobby is open and the recording has begun.
Great. Thank you, Dustin. Good morning, everybody. We will convene the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board meeting for Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. Board Member Hauge is excused this morning, and Member Garrett is with me, obviously. First thing we have up is approval of the meeting minutes for the November 10th, 2021 board meeting. Motion?
I approve the meeting minutes.
Great, and I'll second, and those are approved. Thank you. Moving right along, we have a special presentation and announcement, and I will call on Enforcement and Education Director Chandra Brady to take over here.
Good morning, and
Good
thank
morning.
you for the introductions. Tim, can I also have you turn your your camera on, Captain Thompson? Thank you so much. I welcome Captain Thompson here today so that the board had requested that they have an opportunity to honor Captain Thompson's service. And I just wanted to share with you and the group with some details about Captain Thompson's career and how thankful we all are to have benefited from his 37 years of service. He started in 1984 when our training program was 1 week long. I'm sure there was a lot of formality there too, Tim. He worked in undercover operations for illegal liquor establishments and was involved in some illegal stills that were happening back in those days. He served in our division in our agency as a senior officer. He worked for MIW in licensing. He was a regional manager, an acting assistant chief, the commander of tobacco, and then of course a captain. Overall, he worked as a captain in 3 of the 4 of our enforcement regions. He also served the WPEA as the chapter president, creating the public safety employees retirement system that most of us are part of now. Some of his favorite things over the years have been working with his fellow officers and owners and licensees in the industries. The most challenging has been working with the legislature to draft bills, testify, and develop WAC. Most rewarding has been graduating from the Police Staff and Command Leadership Program. And the best for his family has been the flexibility that it allowed him to be present for school and sporting events and to be really present in the lives of his family. Advice he would offer to people starting out in this career would be to always be professional. And what he wished he would have known from day one is to be flexible because the industries are always changing and growing. So I'd just like to pass the microphone back to Chair Postman and just say thank you very much, Captain Thompson, for your service.
Thank you, Director Brady. Thank you, Captain. It's really just such an impressive record. And when I heard you were retiring and saw some of the notes of what your career is like, first thing I want to know is, when is your book coming out? Because I will read it.
I love that idea. Yeah, maybe I should.
You should. When you think about what's happened in the industries that you've helped regulate over that time period, I'm sure that in 1984 it was hard to imagine you'd be helping to regulate cannabis.
Yeah, that was never, ever in the thought process.
Yeah. Or vaping, for that matter. Who knew what that was back in the day?
Yeah, it says when I first started, it was basically just liquor. And now we're into tobacco and OTP and vapor and marijuana. Oh, yeah, all the different things.
Yeah, and it was a state-run system when you started, and for most of that time.
It was,
you know? And
yes.
Yeah.
Control, very right. Yeah, the control.
Right. So it was really super impressive. And I know that when Director Brady said you were involved with some illegal stills, she meant involved with busting some illegal stills, not running those on the side. Unless you want to save that for your book. Yeah. Anyhow, I do just really want to thank you on behalf of the board and the agency and the governor too. It's such an impressive career. And I know that your fellow employees in education enforcement are going to miss you, and so many of them talk about learning from you and watching you do what you do, and enforcement in general. You guys are the face of this agency, especially the last couple of years when our doors are closed and we're not able to get out there. You're out there every day, and I had the chance to do a ride along with some alcohol enforcement people. We'll do cannabis soon, and to see that relationship that you develop with the licensees, it's generally a pretty positive thing, right? That you're engaged in there.
Yeah, I have to say probably the best and the funnest part of the job is going out and meeting the bartenders and meeting the owners at the bars on, at their place of business, just talking about compliance, talking about the issues that they deal with every day. That's, for me, that was always the funnest. And when I moved up into the ranks and I didn't get to do as much as that, I kind of missed that, being able to go out and talk to those individuals. So that's always been the great part of the job.
Yeah, that's always that trade-off. You move into leadership and you get, behind a desk more than being able to walk in all these different stores all over the state. But
yep, that's very true. But thank you for the comments, Chairman. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go on to something else now, and time to move on to another phase of my life. So there you go.
Well, great. Good. Well, again, thank you so much. Good luck with that next phase. I hope we all have a chance to run into you one way or the other in the future, and just know how much your work here has been appreciated over the decades. It's really something. You should be really proud.
Thank you, Chairman and Director. Thank you for your comments too. I appreciate that.
Great.
Absolutely. We appreciate you, Tim.
Yeah. Good luck, Captain. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. That's amazing. He started in 1984. I was a cook in a restaurant in 1984.
I probably ran into you.
Yeah. I was in another state, luckily. So.
Oh, okay. No, never mind then.
or you probably would have.
All right. Thank you.
See you later. All right, moving along. We've got a full agenda today too. Next, we're going to go into some rulemaking timeline updates, both on the alcohol and cannabis side with Kathy Hoffman, the Policy and Rules Manager. Ms. Hoffman, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Postman. Good morning, and good morning, Board Member Garrett. Just a really brief update on rulemaking. There's quite a bit of activity, as you just noted, happening this morning. Also want to speak briefly to the work that we're doing on the social equity rule development. We have 2 project teams that are progressing nicely and putting draft conceptual rules together. We do anticipate having draft conceptual rules ready by early January so we can host a listen and learn session. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that and the great progress we're making there, staying in step with what the Social Equity Task Force is suggesting to us. On the general rulemaking front, we have a project team put together some e-filing rules that our adjudications unit has been requesting for some time. So we anticipate bringing a CR 101 to the board in January to commence that rulemaking formally. And then we're also thinking about planning for rule projects for next year. We do have some pretty significant projects coming to a close today and next month. So that will put us in a good position to be able to respond to rulemaking that emerges from the coming legislative session, and then some other projects that the agency is interested in commencing around cannabis packaging and labeling and advertising as well. So that's an update for today. Any questions before I move into item 5, since Mr. Despain is not with us this morning?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Any questions, Member Garrett? Oh, I think she froze there. So yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I'll move to item 5. Like to request your approval this morning to file a CR 103 to adopt amendments and new rules sections to implement the directives of engrossed second substitute House Bill 1480. So just a brief technical update before I ask for your approval. We started this project in May of this year by initiating rule inquiry. We held 2 listen and learn sessions, one in August and one in September, brought a CR 102 to you for approval in late September. And as a result of all the groundwork that we did there were only 3 comments received during the public hearing on November 10th. None of these comments resulted in any change from the rule proposal we presented to you. and in the package that's before you today for adoption. So if adopted today, I'll file the 103 in the rule text with the Code Revisor's Office, and rules would become effective 31 days after filing, for January 8th of 2022. Can I answer any questions?
No, I was just reading the memo there. Sorry. No, I'm good. I think it's been a pretty thorough process, as they always are, and I'm always surprised but pleasantly so when you have no revisions from the previous to this, and I guess that shows people are engaging early and being heard. I hope that's what we're learning there.
Yes, I would agree. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay. All right. Any questions, Member Garrett, on 1480 implementation?
No questions. Are we doing a motion on this now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I move approval of the CR 103 for the 1480 rule implementation.
Great. And I will second that. And so that is approved. We've adopted the CR 103 for implementation of gross second substitute House Bill 1480. Thank you. Now we keep going here on to cannabis related rulemaking. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, there's Mr. Jeffildall. Jeff Jeffildall. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Postman and Member Garrett. This morning, I would like to request your approval to file a CR 102 that proposes to amend current rules in WAC sections 314.55.101, 314.55.102, and 314.55.1025 regarding cannabis quality control testing. These proposed rules would require marijuana producers, processors, and producer processors to test all marijuana products produced and sold in Washington State for pesticides, in addition to the currently required suite of I-502 tests. The proposed rules would allow also the board to conduct randomized or investigation-driven testing for heavy metals in marijuana products. It is anticipated that the effect of these rules will be to promote the overarching goal of the WS-LCB to protect public health and safety, and to help ensure that all marijuana products sold within the I-502 market are safe for all consumers. With the recent increase in hemp-derived Delta-8, Delta-9, and other unregulated products entering the I-502 market, it is important at this time to require the addition of pesticide testing and allow random or investigation-driven heavy metal testing for adult use marijuana products to protect public health and safety. This project has a lengthy history of rule development and extensive stakeholder engagement. The first listen and learn session on draft conceptual rules was held in April 2019, and the second was held in August 2019. These two sessions were among the first that LCB offered to increase and enrich stakeholder engagement in the rule development process. In all, well over 350 comments were received, organized, and reviewed as part of the initial development efforts. These became part of the original CR 102 package for this project. The board approved the first CR 102 for this project on January 22nd, 2020, setting a public hearing for March 18th, 2020. However, this hearing was continued based on the status of the COVID-19 outbreak and the agency transferring operations to an all virtual and remote platform that, at the time, did not offer a way to hold a public hearing. The hearing was continued, but as the pandemic surged, the board withdrew the CR 102 on the premise that it would refile once an appropriate platform was available. On May 27th, 2020, the board approved the refiling of the original CR 102, setting a hearing date for July 8th, 2020. The hearing was held on July 8th, 2020, and based on substantive feedback resulting in substantive changes to the proposal, the board approved a supplemental CR 102 on September 20th, 2020, with a hearing date of November 18th, 2020. Following this hearing, the board reviewed all feedback and determined that a new approach was necessary. To assure that the agency understood and heard from the complete system, processors, producers, retailers, consumers, and others, and provide an opportunity for all in the supply chain to have an opportunity to hear the wide range of perspectives around product testing, the WSLCB hosted 3 deliberative dialogue sessions on marijuana product testing in January and February 2021. These sessions were used to inform the development of new draft conceptual rules. A responsive document was added to the LCB website in April 2021 that addresses common themes from these sessions, including requests for third-party sampling. A listen and learn on the new draft conceptual rules was held on October 20th, 2021. These sessions were announced via GovDelivery and other media platforms and open to the public, licensees, and any interested party to encourage community input. We received a number of written and oral comments during and after the listen and learn session. Comments continued to be offered through November 2021. These comments did not embody or represent broad licensee or lab agreement on any specific theme or themes. These
Mr. Jeffildall, I'm sorry, can you pause 1 second? I think we just lost member Garrett, which means we wouldn't have a quorum. Let me see if she's calling back in here.
Yeah, give me just 1 second, Chair.
Okay, we're going to everybody, we're just going to stand at ease for a moment. Thank you. Okay, we are back with a quorum. Sorry, Mr. Jeffildall, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair Postman. We received a number of written and oral comments during and after the listen and learn session. Comments continued to be offered through November 2021. These comments did not embody or represent broad licensee or lab agreements on any specific theme or themes. These comments concerned sample collection, lot size, increased cost to producers and processors, and other topics, along with comments that did not pertain to these sections of rule. In addition to requiring pesticide testing of all marijuana products and allowing randomized or investigation-driven testing for heavy metals, this proposal includes revised sample collection and storage procedures, increasing the maximum amount of marijuana flower that may be represented by a single I-502 panel of tests, and revising the number of 1 gram flower samples required for testing. Elimination of the ability of certified labs to return unused portions of samples to licensees. Revised guidance to labs regarding when to reject or fail a sample. Updated lab testing requirements and procedures. Updated and expanded information regarding testing levels for water activity, potency analysis, foreign matter inspection, microbial screening, mycotoxin screening, and residual solvent screening. Updated rule language regarding product retesting, remediation of failed lots, the expiration of certificates of analysis, and referencing of samples, and updated reporting requirements for lab proficiency testing. If approved today for filing, the public hearing would be held on February 2nd, 2022, and we would tentatively bring a CR 103 to you for consideration on March 2nd, 2022, assuming that no substantive changes are made to the proposal. Under that tentative timeline, the rules would become 31 days after filing, or approximately April 2nd, 2022. I would ask for your approval to file this CR 102 proposal today. Thank you. And can I answer any questions?
No, I do just want to say, one, thanks for all the work on this. I had the chance to sit down with you last week and really go over it in a level of detail I hadn't had the chance, and it's impressive. It's complicated, and I know how hard it's been to try to get it to the point where it is. So I really appreciate that. I think that the fact that we're the last state to require pesticide testing is not something to be proud of, but I'm really glad we're going to take care of it now. And as I was going through your memo on this, really the conversation started even longer ago in early 2018 when medical marijuana patients and consumers and some licensees came to the agency asking for this. So this is a long effort. The industry's changed a lot even since then. And so I think this is a good way to approach it. And I just hope that we see there's going to need to be a need for labs to do this work. I hope they're watching, see that this is coming, that I expect this will be approved now, and we will continue to support the efforts to get this going. So we need to make sure people have a place to do the testing when it comes to it. So with that, I will pause, Member Garrett, for any questions you had or a motion to approve.
I have no questions. I echo what David just said, and I move approval of the CR 102. David, my tablet died on me, so I had to switch. I don't have the agenda in front of me to read the complete.
Great. So this is, let me just say that looking for a motion to approve the CR 102 for marijuana quality control rules.
Okay, so I move approval of the CR 102 for the medical quality control rules.
Marijuana quality control rules, and I will second, and then that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Postman.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffildall. Good luck with this one.
Thank you.
And now Ms. Hoffman will step back up. We're going to have a public hearing on another rule.
We are, Chair Postman. Good morning again, and good morning again, Board Member Garrett. I'd like to provide a brief procedural history before we move to the THC compound evaluation hearing this morning. As you know, the agency's taken an iterative and strategic approach to addressing concern around the conversion of CBD, hemp, or both to Delta 8 and Delta 9 THC and other compounds, and cannabinoids not currently identified in statute or rule. The proposal set for hearing today is one of the elements of that approach. But to take a look back, we started this process by issuing a policy statement last April that framed our thinking and analysis around these issues. And we filed our first relatively narrow CR 101 in May of this year to begin inquiry into that issue. We also hosted the first of 2 deliberative dialogue sessions in June around these concerns. Based on what we learned in that first deliberative dialogue session and in response to the rapidly changing landscape around THC compounds, we withdrew that CR 101 and refiled in early July with a more broadly scoped inquiry. We held a second deliberative dialogue session in late July and began to draft conceptual rules around THC compound evaluation at that time. A listen and learn session was held on those draft conceptual rules on September 9th, and I brought a rule proposal to you on October 13th, setting a hearing for today, December 8th. So briefly, these rules create a framework for the board to evaluate additives, solvents, ingredients, or compounds used in the production of marijuana products as they are currently defined in statute. We have a similar structure in rule exclusive to marijuana vapor products that was established earlier this year consistent with House Bill 2826. However, this goes beyond those narrow constraints as provided in our rulemaking authority as described in statute. That's 695342-1M, and that description is provided in the scoping section of these proposed rules. So this proposal provides for terms described in that piece of statutory authority, like additive, solvent, ingredient, so forth, and establishes a review procedure. This proposal does not allow the board to ban a specific substance outright that falls outside of our regulatory authority. But it does allow the board to prohibit the use of a substance that it may identify as a risk to public safety, or youth access after consultation with the State Board of Health and others within our current and limited authority. I just want to reiterate that. And as you know, we have legislation and request legislation that we're putting forth that would hopefully expand that authority. So I'll end with that. Any questions before we move to the hearing?
No, I just want to reinforce what you just said, though, and you and I have talked about this so many times in these public meetings about the iterative process, but really what we're talking about here is it's a package deal. We've got rulemaking, we've got a proposal to bring to the legislature. We feel we need both of those done in order to have the regulatory system we need to address this fast changing and dynamic part of the industry. And the rulemaking is super important, but we can't do it all by rule. We only can do what the legislature's already granted us general authority for. So we're also working on that executive agency request legislation, which should be done if not already. And we'll be able to talk about that as well. We've been sharing it with stakeholders, of course, and we need both pieces.
Correct.
There's days we wish we had unlimited statutory authority. Days I'm glad we don't, but we don't. And so what we have to do is we have to approach it by rulemaking and legislature. Do I have all that right?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Okay. All right. Just want to keep making that clear. Okay. Thank you for that, Ms. Hoffman. We will now open the public hearing on evaluating THC compounds. A couple of quick reminders. We're recording like we do for all our meetings. When I call your name, please state your name and your affiliation for the record. And then you get 4 minutes to testify. When you have 30 seconds left, Dustin is going to interject as politely as possible that you do have 30 seconds and we ask you to wrap up on time. That said, I just have one name on the list today at this point, and so I will call for Sean Dene. Sean, are you with us? Yes, I see you there and your hand is raised, but I'm not hearing you or seeing you. I just see your name.
All right, there I am.
Oh, there you are. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for having this hearing. I am Sean Dene Wagenseller. I'm CEO of Washington Bud Company, a Tier 2 producer processor up in North Snohomish County. And I'm also a board of director member for the newly established Washington Sun and Craft Growers Association. We are the only trade group association that's led 100% by licensees, and we're really proud of that. Running a volunteer group is challenging, but we're getting her done. And our mission, so that you know, is that we're here to advance and protect the interests of sun and craft cannabis growers through the development of rule and law that supports an economically and environmentally sustainable cannabis industry. And so in that light, I would like to offer that this set of rulemaking is a fine set of rulemaking, and we're really glad that it's moved forward so swiftly, and acknowledge that the LCB does need increased authority over these newly developing compounds that are being made. The only section that we would like to see changed is in 3A, where it states, let me read it to you. It states under procedure that the board may prohibit the use of any additive, solvent, ingredient, or compound in the production of marijuana products that may pose a risk to public health or youth access, including but not limited to. we suggest that you change the board may prohibit the use to the board must prohibit the use. If there is any question that a compound, an additive, a solvent, an ingredient may pose a risk to public health, then we believe that the board must prohibit its use until there's no ambiguity of its safety. And so based on that, that concludes my comments. I'll save the board a little bit of time. I think I'm wrapping up a little early. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. And that is the only person I have signed up to testify on this. Dustin, feel free to interrupt me if I've missed something, but I don't see it. So, okay. We will close the public hearing on that. Thank you for the input. And we'll move to some general business in the board and some work on our continuing effort to rescind interim board policies. Ms. Hoffman is back with us again for a third time to present 3 rescissions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Postman. And again, good morning, and good morning, Board Member Garrett. Just to kind of follow up on what you just said, we began the process of reviewing and reassessing our board interim policies earlier this year, with the first round of rescissions beginning in July. So since then, we've rescinded 17 board interim policies and replaced 2 of those with policy statements. So for those listening in today who may not have heard about this before, the agency issues board interim policies for a variety of reasons, like addressing a regulatory gap or putting a temporary framework in place after legislation is passed but rules aren't quite in place, or there's a temporary concern that was is best addressed, by a policy that could be rescinded once the concern is addressed. So today I have 3 more board interim policies that I'd like to ask for your approval to rescind. And if that is approved, I'll convert 2 of these to policy statements. And these are the details. So the first rescission is for BIP 012012 regarding contract liquor stores. The portions of this BIP concerning contract liquor store relocation after June 1, 2012, and exceptions to the 10,000 square foot requirement are still necessary and are reflected in draft policy statement PS 2108 that'll be issued later today if this BIP is rescinded. This particular policy doesn't need to be in rule at this time, but we do need to have the policy in place for our licensing division to be able to address concerns around this. Second is rescission of board interim policy 042012 regarding relocation of former state liquor stores. The content of this BIP concerning how the board evaluates requests for title holders of former state liquor store locations is still necessary and will be reflected in policy statement 2109 that'll be issued later today, assuming this is rescinded. And then this will need to be in rule at some point. So policy statement will serve in that place. And then finally, rescission of BIP 052016 regarding the use of internet or mobile applications to purchase alcohol. The language of this BIP was incorporated into WAC 314-03020 in August of 2017. So as a result, this BIP is no longer necessary. So I would ask for your approval to rescind BIP 01-2012, 04-2012, and 05-2016 today. Any questions?
Just one quick one, which I should have asked you when we were briefed on this the other day, but just tell me real quick why we don't need the mobile applications to purchase alcohol policy.
Because that was incorporated into rule.
In the one that we already have.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. Then I don't have any questions, and we can approve these rescissions. So Member Garrett, if there's no questions or comments, I would look for a motion to approve the rescissions of 01 2012, 04 2012, 05 2016.
And this is Ali. I move approval of the rescission of 01 2012, 04 2012, and 05 2016.
Great, and I will second, and then those are approved. Great. Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. We'll see you the next time. We now are to the point of general public comment. This is when citizens are able to sign up prior to the board meeting to address the board. A couple of quick reminders. As I said, for the public hearing, everything's recorded, of course. I ask you to state your name and affiliation for the record. Be mindful of the time. Everybody gets 4 minutes and only 4 minutes. And when you have 30 seconds left, Dustin will let you know and ask you to really wrap up. I will just call people to turn on their cameras in the order in which the list was provided to me. So the first will be Sean Dene.
All right. Thank you again, board. I introduced myself earlier, so I'll just let that introduction stand. The board of the Sun and Craft Growers wish to extend our sincerest thanks to Russ Hagee for his service on this board. I was hoping Russ would be here today so that I could give him that notice directly, but unfortunately he's not. Due to Russ's diligence in tracking down the Delta 8 issue, the conversions, the synthesis, we wouldn't be as far ahead as we are on that topic that we are today without Russ's help on that and leadership on that. We really appreciate the fact that he has supported small cannabis farmers. That makes me cry to think that he's leaving, but hopefully hopefully he'll be replaced with somebody that has just as much passion and diligence for rule and law, and we can move forward and get them quickly up to speed to all of the topics that we have to deal with here. So with that, anyway, we again thank Mr. Hagee for his service.
Great, thank you. On his behalf, we appreciate that. We'll pass it on to him. Russ, we think will join us this afternoon for the executive management team. We'll make sure, and we'll just, okay, I'll have more to say. We'll let other people come and talk and say, but thanks, Sean, appreciate that. I know Russ will appreciate it. The next person to address the board is Chris Bradley. Chris?
Thank you, Chair Postman, and good morning to Member Garrett. I appreciate the opportunity to make some quick comments here this morning. My name is Chris Bradley. My wife and I own a Tier 3 producer processor in Tacoma, and I'm going to start with a quick caveat. My potential for misunderstanding situations is almost guaranteed, so I would appreciate afterwards education on things I might have gotten wrong on the topic that I'm going to comment on, which is the CCRS system. And secondly, by way of explanation, I think, Chair Postman, you mentioned that you had previously been a cook or a chef in a restaurant. I don't know if you have a tendency as you go out to restaurants to be somewhat critical of their work because of that background. My background is in IT, and therefore sometimes I can be a little bit focused on technology issues. But I'm here this morning to give you a quick perspective on the CCRS system. When I entered this industry after 30 years of corporate life, I did a fair amount of study, and while I was very focused on my own investment and my initial employees' well-being, I had an appreciation for the history of cannabis and the social equity context. And in particular, and as Kathy Hoffman and I have had discussions about before, I do believe that this is a social experiment that we all have a responsibility to try to make successful. And we've done a marvelous job so far. We have a ways to go, I think. But one of the things that I got out of that context was I saw a lot of rationale in the extensive compliance obligations that a licensee holds. They are expensive, they are at times onerous, but they made sense to me. As time's passed on, and as the industry has continued to evolve, I also have felt very strongly that the industry needed to evolve and mature its compliance regimen. We're no longer questionable criminals. We hold a responsible position in the industry of Washington State. I believe last time I checked, the second most valuable cash crop behind the Apple industry. And therefore, we needed to look at how could we begin to drive efficiencies into the protocols and the data acquisition that all of us were required to provide as we did our jobs. And the principal reason that I think that this was so important was not just cost, but a specific sensitivity of mine, and that is the infrastructure providers, the software providers, what we refer to as the systems integrators of the industry, currently today are overburdened with compliance requirements and compliance variations, both from the differences in different state systems, but also the changes in back-end systems implementation. And that comes at the cost of the investment and development of functionality that's necessary to provide a more efficient and sophisticated software infrastructure to allow us to be more competitive in a tough environment. So
Chris, you have 30 seconds.
I'm not going to be able to finish up. Let me just quickly express my concerns. I think that we have moved rapidly towards a very simplistic system. I think all of us are going to be happy for the sensitivity, but I feel a very strong set of concerns that we're not going to be able to meet our public safety obligations without chain of custody and a rational identification of a universal ID implementation. And I really hope that the LCB takes a look at that and makes sure that they're going to be able to meet their obligations in the midterm. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Bradley. Sorry for the time. I would ask if you had thoughts you wanted to email, or if you'd like, we could also have somebody who could engage with this, reach out to you and call you if you'd like.
I'll email my thoughts, and then if someone could respond, that would be great.
Terrific. We will do that. Thank you. Next, Gregory Foster.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Gregory Foster with Cannabis Observer, and thank you to the board and staff for always listening to what your stakeholders and the public have to say. First, I'd like to also extend my heartfelt best wishes to board member Russ Hauge on the announcement of his early retirement from the board. I've always appreciated his candor and willingness to bring up difficult subjects in public, and I can relate to his instinctive defense of the most vulnerable among us and his well-founded concerns about the viability of the Washington cannabis sector. We'll miss him. And so thank you for your service, Mr. Hauge, and I wish you happy years ahead. I'd also like to address the Cannabis Central Reporting System, or CCRS. Chair Postman, you may recall that during your very first board caucus this past March 16th, former Deputy Director Megan Duffy and former CIO Mary Mueller presented a roadmap for traceability in Washington State, which built on the work of the Traceability 2.0 work group, which I was a member of. Agency staff came to the conclusion that a leap to a different traceability regime couldn't be accomplished without an interim step to an agency-run reporting system, the CCRS. That was the last time we heard anything publicly about traceability until CFO Jane Morgan briefed the board on the CCRS communications plan during EMT on August 11th. Agency staff had been working during that time to validate the CCRS approach, but without any notice, engagement with, nor input from the cannabis sector. The transition to CCRS was broadcast to your stakeholders in late August, which granted the cannabis sector about 4 months to prepare. During the transition from BioTract to MJ Freeway, the agency convened a traceability advisory committee to engage with stakeholders. When MJ Freeway failed to launch 4 months after signing the contract with LCB, the progenitor of the CCRS was launched to enable reporting, and weekly integrator work sessions were organized to provide a forum for agency staff and service providers to share information and perspectives. As the shortcomings of MJ Freeway became apparent, those engagements with your stakeholders helped convince agency staff to freeze development on leaf data systems in favor of comparative stability. The Traceability Advisory Committee was halted, and the Traceability 2.0 work group organized to help agency staff think through what to do next. Duffy and Mueller left the agency shortly after their presentation of their findings in March, and George Williams was promoted to CIO. The integrator work sessions were canceled shortly thereafter. So throughout this time, while the CCRS has been developed and deployed, agency staff have not had the benefit and challenge of structured input from stakeholders. The CCRS communications plan consisted of broadcast announcements and one-way webinars responding to selected stakeholder questions sent in advance. The CCRS at lcb.wa.gov email address is handled by the public relations professionals in your communications division. So while the CCRS may have been envisioned as an interim step, it's my understanding that it may be a final solution. So ultimately, I think that can be a good thing if we navigate together through the issues that you and your staff are hearing more and more about. Board Member Garrett, as you reconsider the purpose of the Cannabis Advisory Council, there may be a role for members to play in relation to CCRS and/or creation of a technical subcommittee. The internal LCB CCRS Steering Committee could voluntarily offer more transparency into its deliberations or establish a public working group. One way or another, if the regulated community is going to have to use the CCRS for the foreseeable future, we must have a means to dialogue with one another in a way that is not prohibitively expensive and exhausting for agency staff to manage, and honors the perspective of licensees who want to operate in compliance without traceability remaining a burden
30 seconds left.
And an undue expense. I applaud the agency for not only kicking MJ Freeway to the curb, but also declaring through your actions that cannabis should not be further stigmatized by architectures of real-time surveillance. Let's hold true to that path together.
Great. Thank you for your comments today. Appreciate it, Gregory. Next is David Busby. David?
How about now?
Can hear you just fine.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm David Busby with OpenTHC, and I'm glad you're receiving this okay. The CCRS rollout was not the wild success that the LCB claims it was. The original messaging on the CCRS platform and its deployment was kind of inconsistent. When it was first announced, the migration period was to close on December 31st, and then later it was changed to close on December 18th at the end of a 2-week transition period. And then at the last minute, Friday, before the Monday launch, the agency determines that all reporting must be completed in CCRS by Monday the 13th. This is a typical pattern for the agency to drop a huge information bomb at the last minute with no possible chance for feedback from the community you're supposed to serve. Now that CCRS is launched, there's dozens of bugs, many of which were reported weeks ago and have had zero progress. Some bugs, like the simple logout issue, take just one click to verify. The agency said they could not duplicate this bug. They needed more information. So I followed up with that with a 7-second video showing how to click a top-level link on the main page of the application and demonstrating this bug that was apparently too difficult for agency staff to find. There also exists a standard published by the Internet Engineering Task Force in 2005 on how to handle CSV files. The LCB is actively ignoring this specification. When informed of this fact, the LCB doubled down and then formed policy that instructs everyone else to do the thing the wrong way. As long as enough folk agree that 2 + 2 is 5, it should all work out, right? There are other bugs filed that all have easy fixes. 1 or 2 lines of code in here. and the agency has made no effort on those. Some of these bugs seem almost designed to give the agency plausible deniability when the inevitable data corruption, loss, scrambulation occurs with this basic system. When the agency is informed of these objective truths, rather than fix these engineering problems, the staff attempts to deflect, claiming the technical observations are personal attacks and that everyone is working hard and trying their best, and attempt to close out the conversation without addressing the engineering issues. It's possible to try your best, to work hard, and still have bugs with room for improvement. We're trying to work together, so don't take bug reports personally. Your policy seems to kind of ignore these issues or defer, pretend they don't exist, claim things are working fine, and then maybe, we'll possibly look at suggestions in the future. We need to have more certainty in these digital systems. There's an additional set of non-technical issues that were raised during the rollout of the CCRS starting in August that the agency has apparently ignored. Imagine our surprise when these issues appeared, observed by multiple licensees regardless of software platform. For example, basic access to the CCRS platform, multiple license access failures, or how to complete the manifest web form when using a transportation carrier. You've had months to figure it out and only came up with a half-baked solution after the launch. We need official documentation for these ad hoc workarounds. And finally, the agency needs to make some clear statements about what a licensee's contracted agent, their software provider, is allowed to perform on their behalf. Some software providers have implemented robust automation solutions against the Drupal-based manifest web forms, and others are claiming that the LCB has stated that that is not permitted. However, the agency has not made any definitive statements about it, only claims that the web form manifest is not designed for bulk upload.
David, you have 30 seconds.
Because not designed and not allowed are significantly different things. If this automation is not allowed, then the LCB is making it much more difficult for the licensee to enter data accurately and consistent with their CCRS file uploads. Also, the automation issue is completely unrelated to the image capture feature that the web form that exists in the web form that others have complained about. So don't conflate those two. Capture is not the core problem. The blessing to automate on behalf of the licensee is critical, and the timing need for this is urgent. Happy to answer any questions or provide additional information.
David, that's your time.
Thank you for the comments. Moving on to the last, I think one person who signed up is not online, and then the last then on my list would be Peter Manning. Peter?
Can you guys hear me?
You bet.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Postman and Mrs. Garrett for having me. I'm with Black Excellence Cannabis. This is kind of like off-top subject, but I think it's necessary for me to stress that I am somewhat concerned with the Social Equity Task Force in the way it's going now. We've been 2 years since the Social Equity Task Force has been created, or a year, but we still have no Black-owned stores. We have no color. When I come to these platforms where the LCB is open, where they open their doors to the public, it's a majority of white people come in and they talk about the issues that they're having in the industry and whatnot. We want a chance to participate in this type of setting. We want to come in and talk to you guys about terpenes and all this. We need this opportunity to come about. And I want color, Black and brown. We got to make this more diverse, man. And this Social Equity Task Force, the leadership there is not working. You have newfound groups that are professing that they are part and speak for that of the Black community, which we don't even know where these guys came from. Black Excellence Cannabis has been here since 2015, but not by name, but by inaction. I've worked with Ollie Garrett before. I've worked with Jane Rushford and Mr. Hauge. I understand he's leaving. He will be missed. But can we do something? Can we just make something happen for us as a people? I mean, can we all come together? We need to bridge that gap. We're still in the same position we were when I started this fight in 2015. And it's going on 2022. I mean, since Paula Sardinas was removed or she stepped down, things have went really bad over the Social Equity Task Force. I'm asking the board to please reach out, do some investigating, see what's going on over there, see what the problem is. The last meeting I attended, they were going to do 15 licenses. Now all of a sudden, I heard it's pushed back to 2023. So what's going on? I mean, I don't know. Can you guys please elaborate a little bit? I know this is not the proper place to bring this up because you guys are on a completely different platform right now. But what I'm saying is the problem still persists with Black and brown people in Washington State when it comes to cannabis. When are we going to be included? That's it. When is that going to be a subject that we really tackle and we just deal with? And we make it, if we open the door and we put us there and you let us be part, I mean, in society, we're good. We're good in every other aspect of life on this planet, but we can't be involved in cannabis that way. I mean, I don't understand that. We need the same opportunities everybody else have, and we're not getting it currently with the Social Equity Task Force. We need you guys to step in and to look into something. We got to do something, man. You guys, we're talking about moving further in the future in cannabis in Washington. You guys are making new policies and everything. Everything's happening and rolling forward, but there's still no Black and brown inclusion. At some point, we should stop with everything and work on that, and then work on everything else. By the time Black people and brown people get involved in this cannabis industry, it's going to be completely transformed into something that's totally different. We're not going to know anything. The learning curve is going to be so great for us. We got to change that, people. That's all I'm saying. And thank you for your time. Hey, Mr. Postman, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Ali Garrett. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Appreciate it. That is the end of the people we've had signed up for public comment. I want to just take a second here to add a few comments. So first, and Member Garrett, I'll give you a chance to talk about the Social Equity Task Force if you want, but let's just, can I just say appreciate the comments about our colleague, Russ Hauge. We also will miss him. We will have an opportunity to talk more about his legacy on this board in the remaining months of his tenure. But yeah, we will miss him too. He is an absolute champion for the small businesses that he regulates. He has been a champion in the effort to look at what the evolution of the 502 system is. He's helped inform my thoughts on that. I can tell you in our frequent meetings that we have about enforcement and things of that, he is really a leader in the effort to look at education and consultation before enforcement and prosecution. His legal background there is actually very helpful to the board. And he's just going to be missed. And he did dive into the Delta 8 question when that was what we called it. It's grown since then, and he did lead the board effort on that. And I think that if you look at the rulemaking we have in the executive request legislation, that he was incredibly successful in helping the agency view this in a certain way. So, like I said, we will have opportunity to honor his service, but I didn't want the day to pass without that. The only other comment I'll make is I want to make one comment about CCRS. Is I know that team is committed to the transparency that we heard about here, and we'll ask them to engage with folks to see if there's something more that could be done. I've not heard any hesitation on their part to do this, and in fact, specifically open to bug reports and things like that. And I think they're very good at filtering out what could come out as some people's frustration or even anger or whatever else, and try to look at what is the information and try to improve the system. And so I think they are committed to that. And then on the questions that Mr. Manning raised, and the challenge really for Mr. Manning, I will pause to see, Member Garrett, if you wanted to address anything. You you represent not just the board, but you're a member of that task force, I know.
Thank you, David. Yeah, right now, the task force, we have not, as a whole, put any recommendations that's going to be presented to the board yet. But in the meantime, for every task force meeting, we have had a member and members of the LCB listening in on those meetings. In the meantime, internally, we have formed our own social equity task force in listening to the meetings, hearing what the community is saying, and taking a look at, are there things that we can be doing now or be prepared to do when we receive recommendations from the task force. Those meetings, we have a representative from every agency within the LCB, and we're looking at what we can do by rule, what we're going to need legislation to do. But all of those conversations are going on inside the LCB while we are waiting on recommendations from the task force. Yes, that's my comment.
Yeah, and I think to you know, we're not just sitting and waiting. You know, we have rulemaking underway. We want to be in the best position possible when we do get recommendations. There are some things we can do, and we have done without task force recommendations about criminal background checks, which I think was an important piece. And as Member Garrett said, the entire agency is really engaged in this in a what I think is a pretty impressive way of not just looking to see how to implement what recommendations we get, but what else can be done, how soon can it be done. There's an actual eagerness to do those things. And I know that those are just words, so we need to make it happen, and we are committed to that. The entire board is, and I know the governor is as well. And so there are some things happening. And I just had a discussion yesterday with the chair of the task force, Representative Morgan. I continue to have confidence that we will get recommendations that we can then find we will come back as quick as we can and say, here's how we can best implement these things. And that's our responsibility is implementation. But we're also engaged in not just through Member Garrett's participation in the task force, but as she said, our director of licensing, our director of enforcement and education, and their staffs have also been engaged, Director Garza, and at all levels. So I won't even ask people to be patient because I wouldn't want to be told that. I just want us to be able to show the progress that people demand, and I'm optimistic we will do so. We're trying to be in the best possible position to do that and to do it as quickly as possible. And with that, we are done with our business today. Appreciate everybody's patience. We had a full agenda, and I would say we have an executive management team this afternoon, so you can tune into that. I believe Member Haggie will be back for to join us for that one. And with that, we will adjourn the board meeting for today, December 8th, 2021. Thank you, everybody.